Sunday, Missouri health officials plan to start cracking down on the sale of hemp products designed to mimic marijuana. But today, their plan was taken to court by the state's leading hemp producer group. Joe McLean has been following this closely and has our update tonight from Jefferson City.
While the Parson administration waits for an official rule to be vetted and approved, the Department of Health and Senior Services says it plans to begin enforcing an executive order this weekend. The order will ban the making and sale of hemp-derived products that mimic the effects of cannabis. The products, such as Delta-8 THC, are unregulated right now, as they're outside the legal definition of what's considered marijuana. Parson said that's the reason he wants to see them pulled out of smoke shops and liquor stores, particularly those labeled to look like name brand snacks.
You know, we're talking about protecting children from a cannabis substance or fentanyl or any other kind of product that we have no idea what's in these packages, and they're targeting children.
On Thursday, state health officials sent out a memo to hemp sellers warning that any intoxicating products are, as of Sunday, considered adulterated under the Missouri Food Code. On Friday, the Missouri Hemp Trade Association filed a lawsuit calling that move illegal.
They're basically trying to use the adulteration language to take hemp off the shelves, where hemp is clearly, according to the Missouri State Legislature and the law, not adulterated.
Parson has described hemp THC as a public health threat, but hemp producers accuse the governor of attempting to manipulate the cannabis market by cutting off the biggest competitor of the state's dispensaries.
He's trying to use DHSS to do an end around and basically go around the elected officials and the public in the state of Missouri who have not shown any interest in what he's doing.
The lawsuit asks a judge to block DHSS from enforcing Governor Parson's rule. The department said it will not comment on pending cases. In Jefferson City, Joe McLean, KY3 News.